Okay, I love Trevor Noah. I'm gonna say that out loud. I love Trevor Noah so much. But it's not just because he's funny, but because he makes you think. Because he presents info in a different manner. Because he gets serious sometimes and lets you contemplate on the actions that happen in society. Trevor Noah is a prime example of what society needs in order to progress. I'm proud to stand on the side of government. Well, firstly, what am I going to do? Few responses, right? Firstly, what was PM's main argument? He talked about how it's funny and people won't take it seriously. Firstly, we'll be happy to take the hit, bite the bullet, and say, sure, it's funny, but as long as info spreads. That's number one. But number two, he talked about how no one actually takes it seriously and no one's going to really give a damn crap about it. We tell you, what's the purpose of these late night shows to begin with? The purpose of these late night shows is to spread information. That's number one. But number two is to let people's voices and ideals be heard. That's number two. So then we tell you that people aren't just going to be not going to take it seriously. We tell you they will anyway. And lastly, they talked about how they're going to make fun of victims, right? We tell you they don't make fun of victims, they make fun of the oppressors. This is a big problem, right? And lastly, and that's my second rebuttal, is about there being principally inconsistent with our entire case. Because he comes up here and he wants people to solve the problem. Government wants people to solve these problems, right? And take it seriously. But then they rather people not knowing the information of what happens in society anyway. We tell you there's a big contradiction and why they lose anyway. Let's go into characterization. I'm going to tell you about late night shows in itself. Let me tell you, I'll take it in a minute. Let's talk about what late night shows are. They're basically comedians or a group of people or companies, but they also have accountability also. They have accountability like social media calling them out for saying bad things. Things like fact checkers who are going to say if they're principally consistent or not. Talking about how scriptwriters will review what's appropriate or not. And if they're liberal, things like they're going to call out things that are happening on both the liberal side and also conservative side. So we tell you that checks and balances already happen for them anyway. What's our stance? We tell you that both talk shows and other news forms can be presented to the public, and we have both on our side. On their side, they only have one form, or like they take away our form. We believe that's harmful. And what's our burden? We win this debate if we can prove that we provide better awareness, number one, and provide a better discourse for society. That's number two. Before I go to my argumentation, sure.
Alright, so if it's true that people will call you horrible jokes, then isn't your whole point of making it comedic and relatable doesn't happen and you lose that benefit?
Understand, Rifki, that they don't actually talk about how victims are horrible. They talk about the oppressors. Even if they're going to talk about victims are going to be horrible, there are some people out there who are going to say that it's inconsistent. They're going to tell how it's inappropriate anyway. So then, Rifki, we will tell you that things like social media, they're going to call them out online anyway, so that that thing can be mitigated and that thing can be prevented. First argumentation, how we provide better awareness and how we provide discourse, right? I have 4 levels. Firstly, how we present and how we process information in the 21st century is completely different compared to the 1980s or the times when we just invented radios. Understand that in society this now, we have 2 things problems. First of all, we have low attention spans, which means no one's going to stand out and watch documentaries or going to watch news channels. And secondly, we want things to be interesting, which means kids and teenagers, they don't watch news. Why? Because the social norm and what they think is it's boring. No one's going to stand around looking at people in nice suits and ties, looking all serious and not only letting their mouth move with no expression. If I was going to have Trevor Noah up here, or going to have John Oliver to come up here, it's going to be a better form of entertainment and people are going to be interested with what I'm going to say. Anyway, yes, it is a form of entertainment, but it's also a form of news to process into the whole society. The last alternative is just to allow serious faces with suits. We tell you that it's harmful. I'll explain that later. Right? Level 2, these talk shows in and of itself, right? They're very comedic, but they're also very interesting, right? Because they have jokes. It's not boring, right? Which means it catches people's attention. That's number 1. Things like John Oliver, Hassan Minhaj, and Ronnie Chang, those people are some people who do make sometimes inappropriate jokes, who do sometimes make bad things. I concede to that. We concede to that. But then we tell you that we can change it with all these things and the accountability that happens. If it happens now, we can change it for the betterment of society and the future later. What's level 3? Right? The amount of people that are actually involved in politics increases on our side. We tell you that government are fine with people not knowing anything. What's the big harm of this? People aren't involved. But why aren't they involved? Because they have a lack of understanding and they have no incentive to find out on their side. which happens because they think it's boring. They think that there's no point of actually looking at news because no one really cares what Kim Jong wants to do as long as I play my Fortnite and play my League of Legends, right? So it harms the lack of involvement that happens, which means you get uneducated voting, and even if you get voting, it's going to be due to people following their friends or following their parents or following their grandparents. We tell you, we find this very harmful, and you don't get a better and transparent government. Comparative on our side, in a minute, we are more inclusive. We're more inclusive, which means incentivize people to find out more things, and we have better educated voters, which means we get a better and more transparent government. Sure.
So the value of the information you talk about is contingent upon the ability for people to use it in actual discussions. Why they're likely to do that, given that everything in that show has a comedic aspect and even they joke about those problems?
That's leading to my fourth analysis. It's about how we provide better discourse. Gov's discourse is also bad because they neglect and they prevent anyone from actually finding out because they make the seem boring and not make it interesting whatsoever. If you want to find what's so good about these comedic shows or these late night shows, you make it interesting. People want to find out more about things. People want to find out more things about Trump. People want to find things more about this new Pakistan and India thing. I'll give you a big example. Trevor Noah was condemned by the French government by saying that there are Americans also in the French football team. He called them out by telling you they can also be both. They don't have to just be French. That makes you think. That makes you go, okay, why is this going on? Talks about Ozil, who's actually a Turkish immigrant, how people condemned him when they lost the World Cup in the round stages. This shows a lot of discourse where people can actually stop things like this, things like Ozil from happening again. When you have more educated people who have better discourse. Since people have better discourse, why is discourse then important? Why do we protect it and why do we want it so much? Because it creates a world where society progresses through discussion, or in a better form, through a diplomatic manner, and not fighting like immature kindergartners over a toy. We tell you when they find out both conservative, both people on the fence, and people who are liberal, when they come together and express their ideas, sure, we cannot tell you there's not going to be negative discourse. There are obviously going to be a few like here and that, but we take that and we take the hit by telling you we get better discourse. We get that positive feeling where people can actually come out and tell you why we can have better discussions, why society can be progressive. We can have a better, transparent government. Because either on that side, this is what they're going to happen. Either firstly, it stays the same or becomes worse because you don't allow people to actually come out and fight better. You provide them a society where they're not progressive when they fight each other until oblivion.
Right here.
Okay, we've had the Leader of Opposition. Now let's call for Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
People on a daily basis go through a variety of political and social structures and social issues in their country, wherever they are. We think it's extremely morally abhorrent for you to monetize out of these sufferings, to monetize out of the things happening by making it seem funny, by trivializing it and making it seem appealing to a wide audience. So before I move on to my two arguments, which are firstly on what are the harms of shifting the spotlight from the actual issue at hand, and secondly on how even in side opposition, the best case scenario is a world in which side government does not want to live in. I have a few rebuttals. So firstly, they came up here and told us that the jokes that are made during these talk shows oftentimes focus on the perpetrators of these social injustices or political issues.
Yeah.
We tell you this is untrue. We tell you when people have discussions on John Oliver's show, when they discuss things, for example, about North Korea, when they talk about Kim Jong-un, we tell you oftentimes there are jokes made, like how there are memes on Twitter, on social media, on how North Korea only has 20 legal hairstyles in that country in the first place. We tell you these are the kinds of jokes that shift the actual attention from the problem at hand, at the dictatorship of Kim Jong-un, when people start to focus and instead of remembering the hardships that people go through in North Korea, people keep at the back of their mind the 20 legal hairstyles that North Korea has as a whole. We tell you this is extremely problematic for these individuals facing these kinds of injustices in the first place. They also came up here and tried to tell you how now you get people to think. We tell you that although you do get people to think on, how Ozil is a Turkish Turkish playing in one of those football clubs and how he should have gotten kicked out in the first place. We tell you people remember these things because of the jokes made in the show in the first place. We tell you later in the day, the next day, these are information that they do not retain and they do not actually remember. Because the whole purpose and the sole purpose they tuned into the show in the very first place was to get a laugh out of it, to be entertained. We tell you that there is a spectrum and we tell you that a very small minority of people actually tune into these shows to actually get political and social information properly. So now I'll move on to my first argument on how you shift the spotlight from the actual issue. We also tell you that talk shows, because most people only tune into one talk shows, the mindset or like the perspective given to viewers is extremely one-sided and based on the beliefs of the talk show host in the first place. You do not get an active discussion between two opposing mindsets and two sides. So you do not get a very positive and constructive discussion as a whole in the first place. And we think that's extremely problematic. We do concede that maybe having our actual documentaries or news channels might not be as appealing, but we would rather a world where individuals who actually have an interest educate themselves in these issues and make themselves well-versed comparatively to a large sum of people who do not actually understand the issue at hand. We think it's extremely morally abhorrent for that, yeah.
But the thing is, people don't have an incentivization to actually go out and find out what's going on in the world. They're just going to be bored at home because all they do is probably watch Netflix.
Yeah, answer that my second argument there, and how the best case scenario is extremely problematic for minorities, people facing these injustices in the first place. But I'll continue my first argument. So we tell you when you shift the spotlight, instead of focusing, for example, on the Black Lives Matter or the current immigration problem happening in America, we tell you this when the focus isn't on these subjects, where people do not think it's that big of a deal. When you make a joke about the amount of kids stuck in cages when they're taken from the border from their parents, we tell you this when you trivialize it, you make the issue seem less important and less urgent than it actually is. So less people are more likely to want to advocate for lesser harsh immigration policies because they do not understand or see the need or the importance of it. They do not see the repercussions and how important it is that this issue is brought to light in the first place. And because it's extremely problematic, the point in which you shift the actual spotlight from a serious issue to one that's of comedic value and of a comedic aspect. And I think my second argument is one that's extremely important, especially for individuals who go through these political and social issues on a daily basis. So we tell you the best case scenario is when people, let's say most of the people that watch these shows do actually do get informed after they watch it. They retain the knowledge that they have. They remember everything that John Oliver and Trevor Noah said, even on top of all the jokes. We tell you it affects people going through these political and social issues as a whole. When they joke about how there was a person wearing a beard and a robe pretending to be Jesus at Pride during the Pride March, and make fun of the immigrants that are currently stuck in cages like dogs, we tell you this when you disempower these individuals altogether. For example, for a gay individual, when you see these people joking about, instead of talking about the issues of what your community faces as a whole, what your month or your Pride Month actually stands for, people focus on the things that people do, like how they dressed up as Jesus during that march in the first place. We tell you this when these people, like gay people, are less likely to want to come out in the first place because they feel like their problems are being undermined. People do not recognize the problem that they face on a daily basis. The current oppression that they go through every day isn't taken seriously, so they don't feel the need to come out to people, to tell people the injustice that's currently happening to them. We tell you this is extremely problematic because they feel a lot worse about themselves. They're less likely to come out. They're less likely to talk about the things that, less likely to call out these talk show hosts for the things they're doing, for making the issue like this seem light. We tell you this when these talk shows are less likely to get called out as a whole. And we tell you that you disempower these individuals because these individuals who are already at an extremely vulnerable state, these individuals who think that the world is already against them and the odds are stacked against them, the point in which people on the ground do not even take the issue seriously, where people do not think it's that big of a deal, that they are just over-exaggerating everything and that it can be taken as a joke. We tell you when you disempower the minority of the minorities, the individuals in your country that need the empowerment the most, the individuals in your country who are discriminated and oppressed on a daily basis. These are the people you hurt because of because of these comedic talk shows. So we on government are willing to trade off, even in our worst case, and nobody watches anything to do with politics or social issues altogether. We would trade it off to protect the integrity and to protect all these individuals that go through these problems as a whole. We tell you if you want a world where these individuals are more empowered and aren't made fun of on a daily basis, and that issues are taken seriously, side with government.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Now let's call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know a lot about news, and every time my senior tells me to read out what news and like learn about these issues, I just really hate it. I really hate sitting on my phone just listening and just scrolling down BBC News or going through Google and learning all these things. However, the easiest alternative for me to actually learn about this, even if it's not something that's fully and as efficient as what of me listening and wasting my time on BBC News, is by watching shows that do so. Shows like Last Week Tonight or shows like Trevor Noah's show, I forgot the name, are shows that gives me the reason for me to understand more politics and understand the social issues that are going through in status quo. These are all shows that make me feel like I want to watch more, I want to understand the issues more, I want to know more about this particular topic in general. I'm going to do a few rebuttals before moving on to my big argument. So first, I think John came out and told us that how it becomes some form of entertainment and it's something that's not good. And then he also tells us that he rather trades off with people knowing things than for the purpose of other people getting ridiculed. I think Irfan already pointed this out in his speech, principal inconsistency. You can't get people to know about things, but also say that you don't want people to get like ridiculed at some minor point of their life. Because firstly, you need to recognize that Trevor Noah doesn't make fun of victims of circumstance, he doesn't make fun of victims of depression or any other social issues, he makes fun of the perpetrators that are doing so. He makes the perpetrators look as the most definite evil and the people that you shouldn't mix around with. Therefore, it makes it a lot easier for people to relate to Trevor Noah and understand what he's talking about, and also feel empathy and sympathy for those individuals who are getting hurt and who are getting ridiculed. No thank you. So this whole ridicule argument is already not existent in status quo, and he also doesn't prove any harm of getting ridiculed. Maybe some people will feel bad about it, but I think even if that person gets ridiculed and I just don't know about it, it creates some form of empathy in the group. Because you need to recognize there's a whole lot of levels of accountability that exist in status quo where you can't just say whatever the hell you want. Because the first level of accountability is that shows that Trevor Noah and John Oliver already has fact checkers. Means everything that you say is probably a fact and something that's true. The second thing is that almost like 90% of these things are scripted. This means all the things that they show you are something that the whole community understands that you can say it out loud and you can do it. But let's just say both that accountability doesn't work. There's still social media for your minorities who somewhat get hurt to just shout out at your perpetrators and say, look at what they're doing to me, look at how they're offending me in this type of manner. But before moving on, sure.
So I think no one will disagree that all your facts on your social media, on your like comedy shows are real. But what we're trying to say is that at the point in which you make fun of the oppressors, no matter who they are, you also reduce the level of urgency that is based upon such matter. Response.
Okay, so I'll just explain this later in my argument. I'll point it out when I'm doing it. So then Evan comes up here and tells you that people don't understand things fully. I think this is very problematic and this is completely untrue, right? Because the more you watch videos, even if it's a 5 minute video about a big topic, it makes you have the curiosity to learn more about things in society. And then he tells us how you disempower minorities and it makes them feel worse. I think this is also not true because you don't actually like criticize them. Even if you do, you still have empathy and sympathy of the majority helping you out, and that's something that everyone wants to have under do. But the huge argument I'm going to bring up today, which is like a general one, which is why does late night shows bring a lot more benefits than the harms that they can produce under the sides of government. So the first level analysis is that these shows are something that's very interesting. These shows are something that's funny. They make fun of people who do dumb things. They don't make fun of people who who are like just not like a minority or anything. They make fun of Trump doing some dumb things. They make fun of Kim Jong-un doing not realistic things and being weird, right? I think these are things that people make fun of. Therefore, I don't understand the argument about people getting like disempowered, people getting disenfranchised. So, what's the alternative under side government? I think the alternative is horrible and doesn't work. Because John tells you the alternative is something like news channels and documentaries, which is something that never works at all. These things are something that's not attractive, it's something that's super boring. You will never go sit on your couch and instead of watching other shows that you could watch, you will tune in into a news channel. I think this is something that doesn't exist in status quo, no thank you, but it's something that can exist when something is funny and you get to learn the gist of that happening. People rather not watch anything, and like this is something that they say, people rather not watch anything, they rather have people not watch anything and learn nothing about it, which is also problematic. Because first, if the person doesn't know what the hell's going on in his country, how are they going to actually understand politics? Especially when these things are critical in strong critical manners like politics and social issues, then you're never going to actually understand the meaning behind all this happening and understand what's going on in your country. You don't have educated voters voting for your next election or anything in general. No, thank you. The second level of analysis is that how you read up on more issue. This is coming from British POI, right? So when you watch something about like anything, you're more curious to know more about that issue. So if Trevor Noah talks about Uyghurs in China getting oppressed, you're more likely, maybe you just don't understand it, but you're more likely going to go to Wikipedia and read more about it. You're more likely going to other news channels to read more about it. The reason why this doesn't exist inside government is when you don't have something that makes you interested in watching or learning about that video. So if people don't make fun of China oppressing Uyghurs or make fun of anything at all, you're less likely going to read up more about it and learn the actual facts and issues that exist there. Because of this, you're now incentivized to read up more like articles and watch more videos regarding this certain issue. The third level of analysis and how it causes discourse. So we'll agree that some discourse is not actually positive, it's some negative discourse. But however, I think most discourse is positive. When you make fun of people, I don't think the majority of people don't actually think there's something that's so true. Like maybe Trevor Noah says that black people are like weird and everything, but I don't think it's something that goes click in your brain and says, oh, black people are weird because Trevor Noah said so. It causes more discourse and better understanding in your community. This means more of your friends coming along with you and talking about, do you watch yesterday's episode of Trevor Noah's video on YouTube? That means you get to talk more about that issue together and solve that issue and try to understand it better as a community. The fifth level of analysis is that how you get a wider spectrum of learning the politics. So if you're a person that reads Wikipedia and like watches like documentaries, the time taken for you to do so is a large amount of time. Therefore, this is something that's not very efficient and it wastes a lot of time on learning about other things. However, watching 10 minutes videos of Trevor Noah or John Oliver just gets the gist of what's happening in your brain. I think that's far important compared to knowing the full understanding of everything, because that can also happen under side opposition. Although it's longer, yours doesn't even work.
Right? Thank the Deputy of Opposition. Now let's call for government.
I think we need to be more sensitive with the words we say, the jokes we make, and the people we tell these jokes to. Because if you realize, the nature of comedy shows, which John tried to tell you about, was the comedic aspect of it. The side government highly believes that it was very dismissive of some opposition to dismiss its comedic value. Because if you realize, everything that is spoke or told or joked about on like these comedy shows are literally for comedy and no other purposes too. I think you can use like your I think shows like John Oliver or Trevor Noah, it's true that they have such factual aspects to them, but no one will care about your factual aspects if their main focus is not to learn about that, but is to learn to just enjoy the butt of the joke or to enjoy the jokes that are likely to be made. So when Tanish came up here and told you about people are likely to be more aware of Wikipedia and stuff, why are they likely to do that if they're not watching it to do more research in the first place? As such, I'll do a few things in my speech. I think the first thing that I'll do is revisit my first speaker, my second speaker's speech and highlight some of the things that were left unresponded to. But secondly, I will talk about three discussions that happened in this debate. Firstly, being the alternatives that were proposed. Second thing about the empowerment that we always talk about and the discussion that exists within these political and social issues. So firstly, let's get into what we tried to tell in this debate. Starting off from the Prime Minister, we know specifically that people oftentimes joke about these things on comedy shows because it's funny. There's a comedic aspect to it, and as people watch it in the first place. If it didn't, and it was purely factual, then people would not watch it in the first place, right? And because of the comedic aspect, you can never expect such good facts or have great facts, but the joke will always be there. The joke therefore reduces the urgency of said matter. Coming from a second speaker, he talked to you about why people often left disempowered and they suffer silently as a result of people joking about it. I think it's very easy to say that it's just a joke, but to some people who actually go through the struggle that you cannot relate to and you're laughing at, they don't feel the same way. Because they are people who actually suffer. You think it's funny, we think it's not. With that being said, let's get into the areas of discussion of this debate. Firstly, I'll talk about alternatives, because I think this side of opposition really makes it seem there is no other alternative for people to be politically aware. That all people need to be politically aware is some relatable comedy show that's happening at late night. Wrong. I think we live in a society where there's a rising trend of always being politically aware. So things like literally winning the election was as a result of a lot of youth people that couldn't even vote involve themselves in making sure that the election was fair and square, right? Like last year, I think. Kind in that year, because there was a rising trend of people all saying you should care about your country, I think there was enough reason for people to be involved in politics or to gather some interest in politics. But secondly, even if that was untrue, I think inherently people have a curiosity as to what's happening to in a country, or just accidentally involve themselves in politically aware circles on social media, like the people you follow on Instagram or Twitter. Those people oftentimes post very relatable things that can also make you socially aware. I don't understand why the communists are your only alternative. But I think what you have had to do in this debate was prove to me why explicitly comedy shows are the only alternative to make people really care. But second thing I claim on the discussions is that we can gain sympathy. Do not lie to its flaw. You can never gain sympathy at the point in which you joke and laugh about the struggles of people, whether socially or politically. Literally, immigrants are separated from their family. When Donald Trump called for continue to empower the ICE within America, where black people in America continue to get shot, or more social issues that deal with individuals like depression, like familial problems. Those things are often discounted when you laugh about the joke. It also reduces the urgency of said matter. You do not gain sympathy, you gain laughs, you gain joke, and people oftentimes feel hurt and silent about it. Which leads me to the second issue in this debate, about empowerment. The only thing they claim under this was that we will never make fun of the victims. I get it, and I think that that's not exactly true, because it dismisses so much of what I to tell you in this debate. The reason why we think people are likely to make fun of the victims as well is because they feel like it's part of the joke. Like your oppressors is someone to oppress, and oftentimes those are the victims. And it's overall a joke. Why don't we just make it a part of the joke as well? So I think no matter there was no intent to joke about it, people oftentimes say, I just got lost in a moment and made it a joke. And that shit is hurtful as hell, Like people making fun of you because they think you're a joke is extremely hurtful. And I think sure that you make fun of sure they even if they don't, I feel like the implication of comedy and talking about the oppressors can also say, yeah, but also people are suffering and we should laugh about that too, because it's also a part of the joke. And I think that's fine, because we live in an area or this community, this bubble that everybody's just comedic, no hard feelings, guys. What a horrible excuse to say to make people more relatable, make people more socially aware. More importantly, let's get to the issue of discussion. Few things that they claim first. Firstly, they claim that as long as info spreads, and that's more important because at least people get involved. If people are going to make fun of these types of victims or the oppressors or reduces the urgency of these problems, then we rather not, for a few reasons. Because when people get involved, they oftentimes involve themselves with the view of comedy. Because you watch shows to be aware of, because of the comedic aspect. Why is there any reason for you to sympathize with these people to begin with if it's all a joke? Secondly, involvement is the involvement value is contingent upon the ability for people to rationalize all these things, and oftentimes people don't because it's so funny to all of them, right? And it dilutes the discussion that happens because every time you try to bring out this discussion, it's always being joked about. But the second thing that they claim was that we can always talk about the oppressors, not the victims. Yeah, we can talk about the oppressors, but the point we should talk about the oppressor, like example like Donald Trump or Kim Jong-un, you reduce the urgency on their actual actions, like the policies they reinstate, because you talk about their hair, you don't talk about the bad policies that have direct implications to people's lives. Those things are horrible in this debate. But even if it was just like the oppressors, is still so harmful, no matter if the victim is not involved. And people will always have the idea that it's easy to discount because if it was so much of a problem, then they probably wouldn't even joked about it in the first place. If it was so bad, then people had called it out. But in actuality, these TV shows are still present. And because of the lack of urgency placed upon, I think it's very easy to say everything's a joke. But when you are the victim, try saying that my struggle is a joke.
Right, we thank the government whip. Now let's call upon the opposition. Yeah.
Characterization of comedy shows is very vague coming from government because they told us that comedy shows always antagonize these victims, right? And even if they don't, then the people that are watching these comedy shows are going to somehow be a part of the joke and feel that they have a license to make fun of these victims as well. We don't think that's true at all, right? We think that a lot of the times, like we never call out victims, we never tell victims that they're wrong because they are victims of circumstances, right? For a number of reasons. Number one, we think that a lot of the times, okay, so I have three issues for you today. Number one, how we don't make up, like how this victim argument coming from their side. Secondly, about how do we actually, about monetizing victims and how monetizing victims is fine on our side. And thirdly, our worst case scenario and we think that's still better, right? So first, do we actually make fun of victims? We don't think we do. Because we think that at the end of the day, comedy shows always punch up, right? They always make fun of people who make those policies. They never make fun of like victims of this horrible tragedy. They don't make fun of people in North Korea suffering like horrible, horrible circumstances. They make fun of Kim Jong-un who put them in those circumstances, right? Sure, a lot of individuals who would watch these comedy shows always understand, okay, maybe it's a joke, right? That's what they say. We don't think that's true because a lot of the times people who watch these comedy shows are people who actually want to get more information or because like reading up on North Korea isn't necessarily that like interesting to them. That's why they get and consume they consume like information shows like Trevor Noah and things like that. We think that's still fine because at least it gives them some form of awareness about like individuals on the ground and how they're suffering. Then and I'm telling you more in my third issue, right? But secondly, we think that even if they do make fun of these victims, they are accountable for it. They have fact checkers, they have script writers, they get called out on the media, right? But okay, and then this is like very important part. Secondly, which is about how disempowering the people who are struggling inside their like normal lives, right? So they tell you that people will not like come out and will not talk about their issues because there's this like common comedian who makes fun of it, right? We tell you that that's not true because there's always two sides to the spectrum, right? If there is a comedian who makes fun of you because you are gay, who makes fun of you because you are a victim, then we tell you that you have the option to not watch that video. You have the option to like look at more liberal ideals, right? We tell you that if you think that if there is this comedian, which we don't think people make fun of gays anymore, but we think that even if there are, you can associate yourself with people that like Trevor Noah who advocate for gay rights, who advocate for women's rights, right? We think that it gives you much more confidence to come out then. We don't think you are so afraid of coming out just because there's this one conservative like bad person talks about you in a bad
Good
way
point.
inside the media, we think you always have the option to watch and like associate yourself with better influencers, right? Okay. Second issue. Okay, you know what issue?
Right, so when you talk about gay people, I think I find it very funny because why would a gay person come out of the closet if a whole show was based on a joke about them coming out?
Okay, okay. So we don't think that that is true because we think that a lot of the times, okay, number one, people don't make fun of gays, and secondly, the people who make fun of gays right now are called out so much in the media. But thirdly, we think that like a lot of late night shows are like quite liberal, or people who actually like advocate for like feminism rights or advocate for gay rights, right? So we think that you're actually going to get more confidence to come out on our side. We don't think that harm materializes. Secondly, how we monetize these victims, right? First of all, we don't make fun of those victims. But secondly, even if we do make fun of these victims, right? It's not really you just go there and go home, and it's not, if you're watching like late night comedy shows, it's not like watching a stand-up comedy show. It's not like watching a show that is meant like, it's not watching a TV show. It's watching a show that is factually correct, and also a show that has like important parts of political aspects to it, right? So you go inside that show knowing that you're going to get information that's valuable, information that is true because it's been factually accurate. We tell you that at that point in which, sure, you will have this understanding, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's not necessary, maybe it's a joke, and maybe everything is a joke. But we don't think that that's like that many people. A lot of people actually get information from those things, actually get some form of awareness at the end of the day. But thirdly, let's look at our worst case scenario, right? What do we do with this some form of awareness, right? Please sit down. What do we do with this some form of awareness? We already told you how we can get more educated voters, or people who are who associate themselves with big movements that big social justice movements that these late night comedy shows advocate for, right? For example, we tell you that even if you think everything is a joke and you watch that like show and then you think that, oh, they're just making fun of everything, we think that at the end of the day the message still gets across. You will also know that gay rights are a thing, and then you can make that rational decision if it is true or not. And at the end of the day, you will find out about this new movement that's uprising. You will find out about things that you otherwise wouldn't if you just watch the news, which is very, very boring at the end of the day. We tell you that news organizations are like not going to have this, are always not going to be like famous or like as are going to like attract a lot of people because they're like more accountable of a lot of things, and we think that's not we don't think we get that much level of discussion there, right? So at the end of the day, we think that on our worst case scenario, these individuals get the gist of the issue. They will know whether this liberal idea is good or not. So if you watch things like Trevor Noah and then you associate with his values, once there is a politician that advocates for these movements, once there are like actual movements once there are marches, once they are like actual parliament legislating that is helping and advocating for these people's rights, you are more likely to associate yourself with those things. At the end of the day, even if you think everything is a joke, we think that you can get more, you associate yourself with better movements. We think that we still get the awareness is spread. We think this healthy discussion and that materializes in actual things. And for all those reasons, go with our side.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Now, on the output line. Thank you.
It's very convenient for side government to paint side opposition as the most evil people and make fun of all these people and still support it. I don't think this is true, right? Because I think the whole side opposition has been pushing and harping on the fact that these shows give you a lot of understanding. These shows don't make fun of the victims, they make fun of the bad people hurting these victims, all reasons of non-engagement of side government and or barely anything of mere factor. There's like three main issues I'll structure my reply speech on. The first, ridicule versus understanding. The second, or how government tells us that these shows are not that serious. The last is that how making this struggle like a joke is not something that we do in TV shows. So the first thing, right, I think even if we ridicule, which is like the slightest, most like minor problem in reality, like the minor happening of what these shows will do, I think it still does bring benefit. Although we're not saying that ridicule is okay and it's fine, I think it maybe to some small certain extent it does happen. I think we'll still be okay with it because it brings a lot of benefits to us in the near future. Because the thing about ridicule is that even if you make fun of that victim, you're going to garner a lot of empathy from it. So even if Rifki tells you that no, that person is going to feel really bad, I think this is where that person can go on social media and talk about his feelings. This is where that person can go on social media like, look at Trevor Noah, he's making fun of all the depressed kids out here. This is where people who watch Trevor Noah and are updated on all these streams and everything is going to realize that he's not the right person, he's not being fair to these individuals, he's doing the wrong things, and so. There's so many forms of accountability that we've already proven under our side, also completely unengaged from under their side, with no proper rebuttal. Then I think it's also very important for you to recognize that these shows is one of the only ways for you to garner the most majority of people to actually understand politics and social issues. Because if you don't have the shows, the other alternative is something that's boring, something that people don't watch, something that people rather not watch compared to many other things that they can watch on TVs, many other things that they can watch on YouTube and other platforms. Okay, so the second thing is how the show is not serious yet. We'll completely agree, like these TV shows are like not serious at all, it's basically for pure comedy. But I think it's also a fact where these TV shows come to reality. Like even Trevor Noah has his own separate, like a separate part of the show called Between the Scenes. This is where everything he says is not something that's scripted, he tells it out of his own feeling. He talked about how people make fun, like how everything against Serena Williams was unfair and how the feminism doesn't work properly, all in between the scenes. So even if you tell us that these people are going to get ridiculed and everything is going to be harmful for all these victims, we tell you that there's still some form of check and balances that exist under side government, under side opposition and in status quo. So even if that person is not taking things seriously and make things seem as it's not a big of a problem, there is a point of realization where all these people come together and recognizes the real problem that's happening in status quo. This is where you have more individuals who are going to look up to Trevor Noah and all the moral values he's going to teach you and all the things he's going to tell you. That's where you get to learn more about politics and that's where you get to learn about more social issues. So sure, you may tune into Trevor Noah or John Oliver just because you want pure entertainment. But I think the side benefit of that, even if you just go in there for entertainment, you also get that political awareness and all the social issues awareness when you do watch those videos. The third thing they tell us is that people make the struggles look like a joke. We already proved to you why this isn't true. People don't make fun of the victims, people make fun of the perpetrators more, but even if they do make fun of victims with the slightest probability, we've already proved to you why that still brings some form of benefits. I think our worst case scenario is far better than a world where people don't know anything about politics, people don't understand any form of struggles that people are going through, people don't know what's happening in their country. I think that's the world that none of us want to live in.
Right. Thank you to the line as called for the government reply. Yes, yeah.
We tell you that the problem isn't about whether you joke about victims as a whole, whether there are accountabilities or check and balances in order to call out these people that may or may not joke about the victims in the whole. We tell you that the implication that you give by joking about the perpetrator directly trickles down to that whole like subject you're joking about as a whole. So you directly affect the victims by joking about the perpetrator, by joking about the entire situation as a whole. And we tell you that's one that's extremely problematic. We tell you that side opposition told us on how they garner empathy and sympathy for these disempowered individuals. We tell you they never provided the link and explained to us why exactly, just because I watched the show about Trevor Noah talking about Kim Jong-un and North Korea, why I suddenly feel so much sympathy and empathy for these individuals on the ground as a whole in the first place. They just simply asserted that just because they show some pictures of the North Koreans wearing the same clothing and having the same hairstyle, that now I somehow feel empathetic and I sympathize with these people as a whole. We tell you that's untrue. And they also never told us the explicit benefits of people being more aware of these situations as a whole. They told us that you might have more informed voters as a whole, or like your people are more aware of the current political situation. But they never told us why your individuals are likely to want to involve themselves, for example, in your pride marches as a whole. Just because I know that the gay people, because of the late, those talk shows that I watch, just because I know that gay people go through all these lists of problems and then they have multiple gay marches or pride months, we tell you that they didn't give us a legitimate reason as to why people want to involve themselves in these current social issues and political issues as a whole. We tell you it's extremely great that these people know about the current issues at hand happening. What we tell you is the information and the that they get from this is not as useful. They do not put it to use because these are individuals who probably won't ever try to advocate for gay people in the first place. They just watch it to be more informed, then they move on with their life because they aren't directly affected by these. And we tell you on the side government, we've already told you how by joking about the situation as a whole, even if you don't joke about the victim or make fun of the victim, by doing so, by making the situation seem more trivial than it actually is, it affects the minority individuals that you're talking about as a whole. You affect the victims in a negative manner. We tell you that because people do not see your situation as one that's urgent and as one that needs to be rectified immediately. We tell you when people do not take it seriously. People do not think there's an issue at hand that should be solved at this very moment. And we tell you this to disempower these individuals, like we've already said in all three of our speeches, on how you disempower these individuals, because people do not take the problems and struggles they face seriously. So, in conclusion, we tell you that side government is a far better world because we proved to you, although we may not have as many informed viewers or informed people on social and political issues, we tell you we will trade all of that off in order to protect the minority individuals who are directly affected by you having or discussing these kinds of things in a comedic manner as a whole. We rather these individuals better be able to live their lives, better be able to feel like their whole life or their problem is not one big joke to the entire country as a whole. We tell you that it's far better on side government for these victims, for them in the long run. Whereas side opposition jokes about their situation, makes them feel less empowered, and takes away any form of empowerment they can get. We tell you this is the world we do not want, and we tell you that for all the reasons above, on how we help these minority individuals, and how you do not make the situation at hand seem lighthearted and not important, that you help these individuals. So with that, I think that takes